Hashtag United have another title in their back pocket.
They said it couldn't be done! Well, it's been done, and it can't be undone!
All right, then joining us for this episode of the Runfree official podcast is hashtag's finest and the content creator, Spencer Owen. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yes, all good, mate. Eddie, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. All good. We always like to start off the podcast with the how are you questions, because of course that's a question that around mental health is a very important question. I saw you did the Clash of Creators the other day. How was that event?
It was decent, actually. Got to give a lot of credit to the guys, Callum, Tom, and everyone else involved in it, because it was really nice to see everyone get out, play some football. I think, you know, especially with the last year or so, it hasn't had an opportunity to do events like that. And it hasn't really been a sort of YouTube football game since, I think I'm right in saying, since the last Wembley Cup, really. So it's a long time coming and really, really well-run event. So I've got to say well done to the boys.
I can imagine the sort of the organisation behind an event like that is difficult, and obviously you touched upon the Wembley Cup there briefly. How did that sort of come about? And for those that are listening that maybe don't know, what was the sort of like starting point of the Wembley Cup?
Yeah, best way to sum up the Wembley Cup is like a soccer aid for YouTubers, basically. We did it 4 times, but the first one, yeah, I basically had an idea. Well, I was mates for a lot of the YouTubers, and we were all kind of slowly growing our channels and stuff, and we love football, obviously, a lot of us made football content, and I just thought it'd be great to make some sort of game or content out of us as a team, if you like. And I basically went to YouTube, pitched an idea to them and said, look, how can we do this? How can we fund this? Not just a game, but like a series to promote it and create, you know, sort of excitement. And ended up working with EE, the telephone brand, who also sponsor Wembley. So that it wasn't actually pitched to be something at Wembley. It was just a match. But then EE were the ones that provided Wembley, which is amazing, obviously, like the best place to play. And the first one we did was behind closed doors. But we had, I think it's on like close to 20 million views, the final. It's insane. And then we did 3 more, and peaking on the third one, the second one, I think, I can't remember which. One of them had 32,000 people in the stadium, which is ridiculous. Wow. We had the other 2, I think, had between 20 and 25 both times. So yeah, it's one of the best things I've done. It was one of the things that kind of actually really helped my YouTube channel personally and sort of come to prominence. And I mean, you can never not enjoy getting to play at Wembley as a very bang average footballer, can you?
Of course. I mean, doing yourself a disservice there, of course, but playing with players like you know, Robert Pires and Patrick Kluivert, like that, that is something else. How comes they got involved? Is that because the first one did so well and EE were involved, or did you guys have some sort of like contacts?
No, so the first one, was just YouTubers. And then it did well, as you mentioned. Second one, it was through EA, as in FIFA. So we had EA and EA. It's a bit of a mouthful, but EA, all the players, all the sort of ex-pros that played in the second Wembley Cup were all legends in FIFA. So there's 6. And my team had, Perez, Kluivert, as you mentioned, Robbie Fowler, I believe. And the opposition had JJ Okocha, Schmeichel. So many of them, it's mental, to be honest. These names are a joke. And then third year, it was through BT Sport. So BT Sport, because EE and BT were working together, it was like a lot of BT Sport pundits, people like Stephen Gerrard played in the third one. We had David James, we had Emil Heskey, we had William Gallas. I mean, to be fair, a few of them we sourced ourselves as well. We actually had Rio Ferdinand, but he couldn't
injured,
play.
Yeah.
So we pulled in Gallas last minute as a replacement, which wasn't bad.
Not a bad replacement.
No, it's unbelievable, isn't it? So and then and then in the final one, we also had a slightly different format, but we also had legends. We had David Trezeguet, Perez again, came back for a second time. I mean, I'm forgetting people because there's just so many, but all an absolute honour to play with. Cool. And like even in their different ages, you know, some of them still just impossible to get close to.
Anyone you sort of think like you got on the pitch and were just like, this is like the best player I've ever seen live?
I mean, they're all different in different ways. Stephen Gerrard is just my kind of footballer because he's very competitive, and I don't have a non-competitive switch when I play. Like it could be a 5-a-side with my mates on a Tuesday night, or it could be Wembley Cup. I don't really play differently. So that might annoy some people, but I feel like Gerard's similar. We've actually played against Gerard twice, and both times he's just, take the game by the scruff of the neck. We did win both times though. He actually said after that Wembley Cup, he said, next time I'm playing with you boys. He was sick of playing against us. But I love his competitive edge. Robert Perez, athletically, the age he was still could have played professional football in my opinion. It was unreal. Wow. And then JJ Okocha playing against him because of the way he plays, he's an entertainer. He's so good for a game like that. I think he nutmegged me 1 point, or a rainbow flick, or both. I can't remember. But it was an honour to be mugged off by Okocha.
I bet it was. And obviously, since the Wembley Cup, #United really, I think it's fair to say, it's transformed. You've branched out now into a competitive, a very good women's side. You're playing non-league football and hoping, I'm sure, to keep going through the ranks now in the Isthmian League. And obviously now you've got an esports team that's doing really well. Sort of how tough is that, juggling all of that and now of course a family?
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot, but I'm not on my own by any means. We've got a lot of people around us doing a lot of the hard work, I have to say. Because of the nature of # and how it started, I tend to get all the credit, but it really isn't as simple as that, and yourself, having been around it. Like Neil Smythe, for example, does a hell of a lot of work on my brother, of course, my partner Alex, loads of other people, loads of other staff members, and obviously all the coaches and stuff as well. So it is probably something that people don't understand, not only how many people are working on #, but also how much work there is when you go into non-league and you combine it with the sort of content that we make as well. Obviously the esports side. So yeah, there's a lot going on. We're simultaneously a small and big club. We're small ultimately in resources and history and lots of other things, but we're quite big in terms of costs, the amount of work we have to do, and the amount of people that watch us.
Yeah, of course. And obviously talking about your audience, and you've spoken in the past quite a lot about how prevalent sort of mental health issues are amongst young adults. What do you think is your sort of your favourite campaigns that you've done? Obviously, my personal favourite was the 30 matches in 30 days that you did with the Movember stuff. But you've obviously done a lot. So is there sort of a particular favourite you can remember?
Well, I think, I've been fortunate to be in a position to be involved in a lot of different charity situations and raise a lot of money. Like you mentioned, the Wembley Cups. I think all the Wembley Cups combined raised over 200 grand for different charities. One of which was Movember, obviously, which has a lot to do with men's mental health and physical health as well. But personally, 30 games in 30 days was a real kind of passion project for me. It was also the year I turned 30. So it was this 30 synergy. And my younger brother was on it with me every single day. He shot and produced and edited it all. So it was a nice little kind of, if you compare it to something like Wembley Cup, which is a huge production, loads of people, editors, huge crews. 30 games in 30 days was just me and Saunders. We went around the country and we had some help setting some things up, but generally it was just me and him. So it was quite a nice little bonding thing. Knackering, because the 30th game was the final Wembley Cup as well, which in hindsight was so risky for me, because if I'd got one little injury, I would have missed the Wembley Cup. But amazingly, I came through them all right. So I think we talk about mental health as well. That was the kind of one of the main focuses of that project. So I'd have to say that one as well.
Yeah, fair enough. And obviously with the linking content and mental health, how important do you think it is for creators to ensure that they're talking about it and discussing it with the younger sort of adult audience that they have?
Well, I think one of the reasons that's so important is hopefully this has changed since I was a kid, but it just doesn't get talked about, or didn't get talked about as a child. You don't want to maybe start it too early for obvious reasons. You don't want to create any unnecessary neuroticism in children, that might never happen in them. That's not something I've been blessed with. I've always, since I became a teenager, I've always been a bit of an overthinker, and I wouldn't say I was stressed, but I would just have a voice in my head that would just constantly make me second guess everything and overthink things, and never just be able to have internal kind of peace. So, and no one explained that to me. No one really explained to me what was going on in my head. I just had to figure it out myself. And I hope that changes, and always is changing. But from my experience, it is good to open up about it. We were just having a discussion. My friendship group from school were just having a discussion about the American gymnast who pulled out and talked about the mental health reasons. And it's amazing the difference of opinion of people that are a bit more aware and familiar with mental health issues and people that aren't. Some of the kind of throwaway comments that are made about it, and people don't really appreciate what her situation or others might be. Naomi Osaka as well, obviously a tennis player. And that's elite sport, you know, anyone can suffer. But yeah, I think that it needs to be talked about more, because then people understand it more and realize it's no different really to a physical injury. You know, it's something that needs to be treated the same. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not real. 100%.
And obviously you've spoken about like football specifically, and fans have started to come back, which is a massive thing for people's mental health at the moment. I know you attended a couple of the games at the Euros. How was that being back in stadiums?
Yeah, so first game back for me was the last West Ham game of the season, which was great. And I actually really liked not having full capacity crowds at these games, because you could get in and out so much easier. Like, obviously, a big game like the Wembley Euro final, you want as many people there as possible to enjoy that. And that never change. And you put up with the congestion. But I actually think there's like a number capacity, which is like premium for enjoying a match experience, and probably actually take it back to Upton Park days. It's like 35,000 sort of number. You can get in and out, and it's still a little bit of a nuisance. But once you get to 60s every week, so I actually enjoyed the smaller capacity, which probably isn't a popular comment, but it was great. It was great to get back out there. I love England tournaments. I followed England all over the world. But I would say, like, actually, that last game actually had a negative effect on my mental health. And I wouldn't say it was because we lost. You know, I wasn't happy that we lost, and it was a killer to lose on pens. But actually, all the other stuff that came with that final, the misbehaviour, the abuse online to our players, like, I was pretty down for probably like 2 or 3 days after that game. And because of the nature of my job, everything, and like, this isn't true in real life, but probably outwardly, you know, people associate me with so much with football, my personality with football. Like, I've got other things about me, but the way I'm perceived is probably just this sort of full-on football guy. So when English football particularly lets themselves down so much, portrays themselves, I feel personally embarrassed and personally upset, and it makes me question like all my motivations and what I want to do and how I want to live my life, because you just think, am I one of these people? Like, and we do all have to take a bit of blame for that, I do think, because even though I certainly wasn't getting involved in any of the nonsense, without going too off piste here, English people in general, and I've been part of that, I'm sure you probably were, maybe you weren't a little bit when you went to uni, but this drinking culture that we all kind of endorse and embrace, and it's like this macho thing, you know, how much can you drink? I'm going on stag do this weekend. Like, you know, I'm old enough and secure enough in my personality now that I'll just do what I want. But there's a time when, you know, you feel like if you don't down this drink or do this thing, and then certain people can handle that. I never really got in any trouble from that because I knew when to stop, and I'm a relatively balanced human being, I'd like to think. But some people aren't. And the fact is that because these people think drinking's so cool and I'm not talking about a few drinks, I'm talking out of their head drunk. That's when all this stupidness starts, the bottle throwing, the violence, the abuse. So, and some people do it without drinks, they're just wrong ones. But I think we need to all take a bit of responsibility for that and try and nip it in the bud. So yeah, great to be back in the grounds. But that last game, yeah, actually, I was glad I went. And you always want to put yourself in that position to see history. And it's still history, even though we lost. But it was quite upsetting in many parts.
Detrimental. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. It's a different sort of viewpoint, I should imagine, that most people would have expected. And obviously we talk about football fans in particular and football, and the hashtag videos are, you know, the matches and that are all streamed, if you remember, of course. And you know, you can watch those back. How does the club deal with some of the criticism that the obviously quite young lads, sort of my age, you know, can be subject to?
Yeah. Well, I mean, so personally, I had to come used to it from when I was playing, and we were doing different kinds of games. You know, whether it was comments on people's physical appearance, ability, performances, whatever, you know, they're just not, you can't expect a comment section to be balanced or even right sometimes. You know, sometimes it's good and constructive criticism, but it's often not, often just mean. It's something that we've all had to learn over the last 5 or 10 years with social media. it's something that we've tried to over the years prepare our players for, and ultimately say the only opinions you really need to care about are your own, your friends, and your managers. The manager ultimately decides who plays and who's had a good game or not. Do you think that he reads the comment section and actually takes that into consideration? Definitely not. You've got to think about who are the people making these comments. Often if it's a spiteful or mean one, the reality is the person making the comment is probably not in a great place themselves, because I have no need or desire to do that. I might watch a game of football or something completely different to football and have an opinion about a person, but to then that next step, to then openly share that on social media at the person as well, is quite worrying. I think it's much more worrying for the person doing it. So it comes with the territory. If Arsenal, and that's just one example of a club, West Ham could be another, had a comment section after a game, it would be carnage. You see the Arsenal fan TV is the closest you're going to get. But if Arsenal, the club, actually opened it up like that, it would be, you could probably check Arsenal's, replies on Twitter to see what it would be like. There's a reason that Love Island, for example, which is, one of our boys is on right now, they don't allow comments on the YouTube videos, things like that. And X Factor don't even do it, because they've learned that lesson a long time ago. So we still allow them. I have come close to not, mainly during the Academy series, which you've been part of. Previous series have been a bit worse for abuse. And because it's so opinionated and it's about like a chance to join something, people have a lot of strong opinions on that. Some of it's pretty nasty. So that's the closest I've ever come to turning comments off. It's such a big part of YouTube and such a big part of the kind of algorithm and, the difference between YouTube and mainstream content. But I've definitely come close to having to protect them.
I think it was quite interesting, obviously, as you touched on being a part of the Academy series. It was my sort of first real experience having not played at obviously academies, whatever, but not played at a level where your games are almost televised in a way. But yeah, obviously you touched briefly on Love Island. Have you been watching it?
I never watched it before, and I started planning to watch it. But the thing is, because I've got a little boy now as well, you get like 1 or 2 hours at the end of the day when they go to bed where you can actually do something in your life. If I give an hour of my night every night to that show, I'm not going to get anything else done. So what I've actually been doing, because it's quite good, they actually upload little highlights to YouTube every day, like 2-minute videos, 3-minute videos. So I watch them. And I have a little look to see what the boys are saying on WhatsApp and that. So I'm fairly au fait with what's going on in there, but I definitely haven't seen, barely an episode, to be honest.
Yeah. And obviously Love Island is a show that's had issues, surrounding their aftercare and obviously some tragic events recently. Do you think platforms like Twitter and Instagram, which is, I would say, is where most of the abuse is centered around, do you think they do enough to, prevent that abuse?
Well, certainly not. No, they certainly don't do enough, but and that has to change. But equally, the people have to take some responsibility. I think there's all this stuff about ID cards or ID verification on social media. I'm aware of the nuances to that argument, because there's arguments on both sides whether that would be good or not. But something does have to change for sure. Toby, our player who's in there right now, he doesn't know this yet because he's obviously in the Villa, but he's getting quite a lot of abuse at the moment because of his behaviour in there. Which, don't get me wrong, I understand to an extent because of the way he's gone about his business in there, but also, but is he not just playing the game? Like, maybe because I'm not a Love Island viewer, it's like my attitude to football. Again, it's like, what do you have to do to win? At the end of the day, there's people that have been playing the game differently to Toby that have come and gone. He's still in there. In my opinion, is the most entertaining thing in there. The difference is people, I think, don't realise when they make their social media comments is you're not watching, even though there's an element of scripted reality and fictitiousness, you're not watching an actor. You're watching a real person, and you might not like them, and that's fine. No one can tell you you're wrong if you have an opinion about that. But if you're actually atting them and going for them, just because they're in the house now doesn't mean they won't see it when they come out. And you got and Love Island. I don't know how previous years have gone in terms of the production, but I do know that this year Toby and all the contestants have to mandatory have therapy when they leave. It's mandatory therapy to allow them to adjust to the real world, even though they might feel fine. It's such a big change for them, especially if they've become quite well known. That's obviously something that Love Island have put in place as a result of, there have been some sad, suicides actually as a result of of Love Island contestants, lives, situations, and even obviously one of the presenters. So it's good that they're doing that. I think you could ask some questions about the sort of people they're putting in the villa as well, whether they're emotionally equipped to deal with certain things. That's always been a thing. That's not a Love Island thing. That's always been a TV thing in general. That's a balancing act of what makes good content to what are we obliged to do for people's, like I say, Love Island can do better, and they are, it seems. Social media can do better, but the people ultimately, just like the England fan stuff, have to take responsibility. Why are you so angry that you feel you need to abuse someone online?
Yeah, no, I didn't obviously know about the therapy stuff as well, and I think that's something that they've added this year because of said events, which is, hats off to them for trying to make a change and trying to do something about it if they're going to keep producing those shows. Obviously, you yourself have sort of you talk about on the Happy Hour podcast, which I'm a big fan of, and you spoke about your sort of like difficult time with it and when you split up with Alex. How difficult is it dealing with not only the tough stuff you're going through, but having to do it because of the nature of your job a little bit publicly? I just feel like it's an added pressure that obviously people don't really consider when they are doing the comments and when they are watching the videos, etc. So how tough is that?
To be fair, I'm not like some celeb who's getting papped. I don't have that element of intrusion in my life. Anything that's public about me, I've generally chosen to be public, whether it's because I think it's good for other people to hear certain things, or it's because of a sort of, career choice, if you like.
But you do have a joint YouTube channel as well, don't you?
Exactly. And that's a choice. Everything that's on that channel, we've chosen to put out there. So we can't kind of complain at it being public. But yeah, when that was, as I mentioned on that podcast, that whole situation was really something that had just been growing for a period of years of me being so embroiled in my work that my work-life balance was pretty poor. And I just didn't feel good. And I knew within that, having dealt with, one of my best mates has had a lot of issues with depression, and also, people in my family too, having dealt with that stuff sort of third hand, I knew I wasn't right. And I knew that I didn't, it's that kind of weird situation where, in balance and in comparison to the rest of the world, you don't really have anything to complain about. And that's what people that don't get it will always say to you. But it doesn't matter. Like, it just doesn't matter in your head when you don't want to get out of bed, and you're just like, oh, it doesn't matter that, you're in a nice bed, and you've got a nice house, or you've got money in the bank. Those things are irrelevant in that period of time. And same with these sports stars that are struggling now. And you get paid enough to get over that. It just doesn't work like that. And unfortunately, until you have achieved that thing that you're slating another person for not being happy about, you'll never know. And I'm not some, huge celebrity or like really rich guy or anything, but having tasted a little bit of what that could be, a little bit of, I do all right financially, and a little bit of notoriety that I have, I know already, because I probably did chase that a little bit as a kid. I never chased money. I never cared about money, but I did probably I was a bit of an attention seeker, middle child syndrome, want to be, known. I always wanted to be known for a skill, though. I didn't want to be known. I would never have gone up personally on a Love Island or a Big Brother, because I wanted to be known for doing something or making something. But that's changed in me a lot. And part of the reason that changed in me is having a small taste of it made me realize, actually, it doesn't make me feel better. Like, it's not that it's not good. I'm not sacking it off. I enjoy it, but it's not a solution. You know what I mean? I had to learn to live with my neuroses and my kind of overthinking, not try and cure them. And it's actually more about, if you get here and you do this, you're not going to just suddenly go, oh, now I can just sit and not, and be able to turn my brain off. It's just the way I'm built. My brain will always be like that. So instead, how do you learn to cope with that and actually appreciate the moments you're in now, rather than trying to get somewhere else? And that's something that's, everyone's different, but I feel really passionately about.
I think that's a really nice sort of sentiment there as well, sort of living in the moment almost. And obviously touching on the Wembley Cup a little bit, in the future, is there anything you'd love to do with regards to sort of like raising money for charity in terms of content? Like, could we ever see a return of the Wembley Cup or a hashtag sponsored skydive, perhaps something a bit like that?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely always keen to do stuff that can help others for sure. My own personal projects have massively taken a back seat. Like anyone that watches my YouTube channel will see that there's a handful of videos been made over the last few years, really, just because of how busy hashtags made me, but in a good way. Like I really enjoy it. And it's kind of like, not that I knew when I started, but if there was a dream scenario that would come out of making YouTube videos, this would sort of be it. The same, like some of my audience that maybe don't follow hashtag or aren't interested in it, which is fine, don't maybe appreciate is that they just see me, oh, why aren't you making videos? So I'm doing something I prefer, and we still make a load of videos. Don't get me wrong, hashtag make a load of videos, which I'm involved in. And I still upload a fair bit, but not as much as I used to. So with regards to charity projects and things like that, like the 30 games in 30 days, just wouldn't have the time to do it right now, unfortunately. But I'd love to support things. I'd love to be involved in things. Where I'm looking at it at the moment is hashtag's not a charity, but I've set up the club to try and be a very positive, inclusive space. So, for example, going into women's football, and we do put money into that. So it's like, that's my equivalent at the moment, is actually growing a real life community in a real place in the world, despite having a funny name. We actually are a real life community of people in an area and improving people's situations through that. Not necessarily financially, but through experiences and through learning and through community. So that's what that's my all day, every day charity focus at the moment, if you like.
Yeah, no, I love that. And has hashtag put down roots? Is it planning on staying?
I think we've started to, right? Like, just because we haven't got a place in our name, we still, and anyone that's associated with the club knows, like we have a perimeter of all the things we do, whether it's our office, our men's ground that we share, our women's ground that we share, they're all within a certain amount of miles of each other. I want that to get closer. And that's what the ultimate roots will be when we actually get a ground. When we get a ground and they all play at the same ground, then it will really start to feel like, okay, we have a place in the world. But anyone that knows us knows we're based in Essex, in England. And yeah, over the last few years, we've brought everything a bit closer together. We want to keep doing that. We've also got a 30-acre facility, that our youth team are based at and our reserves sometimes play at and stuff like that. And all our senior teams have used to some capacity for training. So that's almost a hub of ours. And that's only a couple of miles from the home ground, the men's ground, about 10 miles from the women's ground, 5-6 miles from our office. So slowly getting there.
Yeah. And what's your sort of vision for the club? Do you want to go all the way to the Prem, like the esports? Do you want to branch out and maybe take on, different sports, etc., different sort of games and stuff like that?
Well, it's about being realistic about the resources we have. So yes, obviously I would love to go to the Prem. Can we afford to do that with our current setup and sponsors? Absolutely no chance. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I believe we are one of the most investable sports entities in the world, personally. I'm obviously going to say that, but that is what I believe to be true. When you look at the hard work we've already done with basically just, me and my brother and Alex, and then more recently Azpilicueta, we have created a proper strong football brand of a worldwide following. And yeah, we might not be at the level that relates to that following at this current time, but that's the easy bit. Like, you put the money into the players, you can climb quite high, even at where we are now, if you invest. We've done the bit that teams 5 levels above us can't get near, to be honest. So we're very much got the potential to go to that level, but our current setup won't allow it. For me, if we continue as we are, my big sort of priority is to get a ground. Because once we get a ground, there's more revenue opportunities. We can become more self-sustaining. And then, if we don't get an investment from our third party, it won't stop our progress. But again, the dream is to get as high as possible. And that's the whole brilliance of the non-league pyramid. But it's like exactly what I was just saying to you about mental health a minute ago. Like, it's not about having to get to the Prem for this to be an amazing journey. It's actually enjoying every game, every Saturday, even without titles and promotions, which we've been lucky enough to experience so far. They will come to an end eventually as we level out. It's just enjoying being able to do this, having good people around you, and you just see how it goes.
Yeah, completely understandable. And I think it's testament to you and Seb and the people around you of what a lovely club you've built and how welcome they've made me and the academy, some of the academy boys feel. But it's an amazing project, and obviously you've got such a following because of how good the whole journey has been. It's invested. People are invested now. That's what I love about YouTube. People are invested in the sort of the projects and the content that they watch, and the people, of course.
Yeah, and the people, on the pitch has changed over the years, as is completely normal, especially when you get into non-league, that there's a lot of movement. But the actual core of the club hasn't changed. Me and Seb and Alex really sat around a table 6 years ago almost and devised this idea to start a club, and we're all still here and we all still work on it every single day. And even though I might not play in the first team anymore, I'm there commentating or whatnot. So the actual, and even someone like Debs, who's our manager, he came into our journey, about 2.5 years into it, as a new character, if you like. But there's non-league teams around us that have gone through 3-4 managers in the time we've had Debs. He's a real important cog in it as well. And then more recently, the women's team have come in and we've kept the same people involved of the team we merged with. So there is a lot of synergy. We try our best to keep the consistency in the people involved because we like them. We wouldn't be working with them if we don't. And obviously some people move on and then we find the next guy or girl who is going to have that same mentality as us. So as much as a lot of the commenters would love to see the originals playing forever, it's just not realistic. Half of them are touching 40, got kids. It's just not, maybe we'll make a vets team or whatnot, but there's a load of us that stay around, and that's what football clubs are great for. You don't have to be on the pitch to be a massive part of it.
Oh, 100%. And just finally, I've got a little bone to pick with you. On Twitter a little while ago, I posted like a little a clip of a couple of goals scored in a charity game.
Shoot! Shoot!
From Eddie Cooper. Are you watching, Spencer Owen? Are you watching?
Tell you what.
And you saw it. I think one of the commentators, Charlie, who's involved with our Runfree group, was shouting, "Are you watching Spencer Owen?" whilst I was doing the Academy series. And you commented, where is it? I can watch whilst playing Life in the Old Dog Yet. So my question to you is, will we ever see Spencer Owen in a Runfree United shirt sometime in the future?
I'm available for selection. I'm not contracted to any. I've got a Sunday team, but whenever you guys play and you need a player, let me know. That's what I'm saying. We're in the same area. I'm available, mate.
Lovely stuff. I will hold you to that when we've got a next fixture in the next couple of months or something.
No worries.